In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, one God. Amen. Hey, hey, warrior saints. Good morning. God bless and keep all of you. This past week, I took my two beautiful daughters to California with me. We went just for a very quick trip to visit Mom, check in on my mom, see how she was doing. We haven't visited, in too long a period. So we left my beautiful bride at home, and the girls and I got on a plane for Burbank. Now, you know how it works. I got pre-check. I get to go in that fast line. They didn't, right? They didn't have pre-check. So rather than me slip into that line with them, I thought it was an opportunity to teach them, to shine their light to me, to themselves, to all of the people at TSA and in those lines, and perhaps even a larger audience, to shine themselves, to show their light, that they could do that regular check-in line without me. They didn't like it. Why? Well, I said, you can do this. You're lions, right? We're training you and teaching you to be lions. You can do this. We don't wanna. I said, well, it's too bad about you. And they said, okay, fine. So we started in the car. We were prepping. They're going to ask you some questions. What's your name? Amelia. Like, okay. How old are you? I'm 11. Where are we going? Burbank. What flight are we on? XYZ. Southwest Airlines. And all of these things. Why are you alone in this line? Because my Father wants to teach us how to experience uncomfortable things so that we could shine our light. We could show ourselves that we can do this. I said, perfect. So we go to the airport. We're at Sky Harbor in Phoenix. And, you get to that point where there's always a guard there checking your thing to see if you're a pre-check or not. And I have pre-check. She said, go this way, sir. And the girls showed her their boarding passes. She said, oh, you can go with him. I said, no, they can do it. And she says, what do you mean? I said, they can do this. They're going to do. So we had to haggle with her a little bit. They let her go through in the regular TSA line, and they're in line. Now, I get through lightning fast, and I'm standing there with all the TSA guys, and I said, look, my kids are doing this by themselves for the first time. Let me just hide in the corner. So obviously I'm going to make sure they're safe. Not that anything would have happened, but I was there to protect them, to make sure they were safe. So they let me hide, and they were impressed. All the TSA guys were impressed that the girls did that by themselves. So I watch, and I listen as they're in line, and now it's their turn to go to the TSA guy who's going to check their IDs and their boarding passes. So I listen to this conversation. Who are you? I'm Sophia. I'm Amelia. Where are you going? Burbank. What flight? Are you traveling alone? No. You're not alone? Well, who's with you? My father. Our father's with us. And he looks at the little one and he says, well, where is your father? Well, he abandoned us for TSA because he doesn't love us. I'm like, what? So, and he obviously let her through. I didn't feed her, by the way, for the rest of the trip. No, I'm kidding. He abandoned us. Smart and sassy. Like I had her planned it. She was good. She was on it. And then all of a sudden, when it came down to it, she threw me way under the bus. That's true. She is pretty fun. Pretty fun. So, needless to say, I'm obviously biased as a proud father. But I saw in those children that moment when there was a light that they could shine, and they impressed me. I'm sure they probably even impressed themselves, that I know they impressed all the TSA people who I told what we were doing. And it was a light that people could see, that young children, that they're not that young anymore, but they're young enough that they probably, didn't need to go through TSA by themselves. But that young people can still do amazing things. Just because they're young doesn't mean that they're not capable. And you know what? In light of this morning's gospel from Matthew chapter 5, that really is a message that Christ is giving to all of us. To all of us. See, Jesus says this morning, let your light so shine before all men, so that men can see, all men, mankind, human beings, can see in you the light of God, the power of God, the glory of God. And they will glorify God because they can see in you the light. And he says, look, when you build a city, you don't hide it down in a valley. If it's a great city, you put it up on top of a mountain, right? So that people could see it. He also uses the image and the metaphor of a light in a room, a candle, you imagine in Christ's time, but even in our day. If you have a light and you want to illumine the room, in the darkness of the night, you don't put it underneath a bucket. You don't hide that light. But you take the light and you put it in a place of prominence in the center of the room so that it illumines the whole room so that everybody can see and live their lives. And Jesus is saying, you are the light of the world. And he's not talking just to me. He's talking to all of us. That we are indeed called by Jesus Christ to live a crucifixional life, a sacrificial life for other. And by so doing, we show the world what God's people are like, what God's teaching is like, what the life of Christ is like. And we do that by being lights unto the world. Now, there are a million ways we could do that. We could do that all over the place. Hey, we could, for all the businessmen and women, you could be an honest businessman and woman, for sure. Even if that means you lose a few dollars along the way. Better to lose a few than to save your soul than vice versa. Be an honest business person. Right? We can see that even for our beautiful young people. Look, be serious and committed to your education. Take it very seriously. And when you see, for some who are old enough, they'll know what I'm talking about. You're going to start to face these powerful peer pressure moments where people are going to want you to do things that are inappropriate, things that aren't right. And you're going to have to sacrifice and say, you know what? My faith doesn't allow me to do that. My faith doesn't want me to do that or behave that way. So I'm going to refrain and sacrifice even maybe friendships with other kids in school in order to maintain that blossoming light, that illumining light in the world. We can also do so in our health, right? I mean, look, it's an inspiring thing for me when I see other people who are really dedicated to their diet, their exercise, proper rest, and mental health. It's inspiring to me. It makes me want to do it more and more, right? I mean, why do you think all of those people on our Facebook feeds that are promoting health stuff, they're all undressed, half-dressed and like muscly and beautiful? Well, it's to inspire us to follow them. That's why they're doing that. I know it's marketing, but the idea is that it's an inspiration, that I want to do that. I see the light in that, and I want to do that. There are a multitude of ways that we can show our light to the world. But today, I want to focus, just for our last few moments, on one very specific way. We've talked about business ethics, and education, and physical health. But today, I also want to focus on a relationship that is given to us by God. And we can show our light to the world by being Christian husband and wife. Marriage. Marriage is a beautiful way to show the light in the world, to show that we are warrior saints, to show that we are living a sacrificial, crucifixional life by the way we interact with that other person to whom we are married. Now, before I go any further, I know that there are some people in this church who have never been married. I know there are some in this church who are married and no longer are. And I know that there are other people in this church who are married, and some may be happy and some may not. But all of it applies to all of us wherever we find ourselves. And so I want you to take these brief but simple messages to heart so that people will look at us in our Christian marriage and say, that's it. That's a light. That's something I want to follow. You know what? And I'm going to glorify God because he taught that man and that woman how to do it. And the first thing to do, the very first, and here we're at the practical point, the first thing to do is to learn how to communicate with one another. There is a great book, 1990, I believe, Deborah Tannen. It's a book called You Just Don't Understand. And in it, she talks about the way men and women communicate with one another. And she has this very interesting phrase that I completely, stole from her. It's all her work, not mine. She says that women, when they communicate, are looking for rapport building. Men are looking for report building. So what that means is, dudes are pretty simple. We're pretty basic. We're not that sharp, really, if we're honest about it. We want to come and say, today I went here, and then I did this, and I said that. I mean, it's pretty simple, right? Guys just want to dump the information out. If there's an issue, I want another dude to help me fix it, because that's what we do. We're fixers. And so I just want to give the data, right? I don't need necessarily, acknowledgement or affirmation. I mean, men need that, but I'm not really as interested. I'm just giving a report. Ladies, however, are interested in rapport building. rapport giving. That means that there needs to be there is a desire in our beautiful ladies to communicate and to share and to express those emotions, and to have rapport means to build a connection, right? They really, more than anything, they want to connect. They want someone to affirm and say, I hear you. I understand. That was a tough day, or that was a good day, or that person was rotten, or that person was great. Women are looking for that connection. And so the first thing we have to do, guys, is sacrifice a little bit of our innate, and yet I say beautiful, but innate desire to fix. I mean, that's how we're built. We want to fix. So when the khuriji comes to me and says, oh my gosh, the day, I like immediately like, oh my gosh, I have to go fight all of the monsters that attack my bride and save the day and fix all of her problems. I mean, that's just, it happens. I don't even think about that. That just happens inside me. But I'm also smart enough after almost 20 years of marriage to realize she's smarter than I am, and she'll figure it out. So she's not coming to me to say, Father Chris, fix my problems. She's coming to me to say, connect with me, listen to me, affirm me, let me get it out, let me process it through this conversation. And so it becomes important for us gentlemen to listen, to listen. Sometimes we may want to say things like, it's all of those typical buzz phrase words, I understand how you feel, or that must have been terrible, that must have been beautiful, whatever it may be. But what they don't want to hear is, here's what you should do, because they're working through it, they're looking for rapport. Now on the flip side, ladies, don't totally reject him if he offers a solution, because that's how he's built, right? And so all of a sudden, now that he's starting to think, she doesn't love me, she doesn't want my advice, she doesn't think I know anything. So recognize, and here's the point, recognize that there is a difference in communication between men and women. Women want rapport, men want to report. And so if we can acknowledge and recognize that I may need report giving, but she needs rapport at this moment, crucifixional for her. And ladies, vice versa. So number one, remember that communication is to be crucifixion. It is to be sacrificial of what my needs may be for the other, and at the same time, recognizing what the other person's needs are. Number two, date. Don't stop dating. I said to a parishioner a few years ago, it was really funny, I'm not going to tell you who, but I said, they invited me to come to something on a Friday. I said, I can't, I have a date. They're like, Father, you're married, you can't have a date. I'm like, hello, it's with my wife. I'm not dating another woman, it's my wife. Why? Because we've been married, do we have to stop dating? Why do we have to stop flirting? I still send her, I won't tell you what they are, but these funny little texts throughout the day, sometimes phone calls, flirting with my wife, asking to go out to dinner to leave the kids at home so that we can go on a date, so that romance is still alive in our lives. Look, sometimes it's hard at the end of the day, we're tired, I get it, but we still have to date. You know why? Because there is how do I want to say, a mental, emotional love, a spiritual love that is when we say I love you, that it's in us. But there's also, let's say it like this. There's an emotional and mental love. But there's also, I got it wrong. Go back. A spiritual and how do I want to say it? Spiritual and mental love. But there's also an emotional love. It's that fire. So have you ever heard anybody say, I read this in a great book by Bishop John, great statement. He said, it's okay to say, I love you, but I'm not in love with you anymore. Have you ever heard that? Have you ever heard that saying? I'm not in love with you. The way Sayyidina John sees that is that, it doesn't mean that godly agape, that godly love is dead. It just means that spark may not be there. That emotional or intimate spark may no longer be there. Okay, so start dating. Light that flame again. Why not? Why does it ever even have to die? We should be dedicating ourselves to a life of dating our spouse. It's important, it matters, and we need it. So number one, communicate crucifixionally. Number two, date. And number three, and this one's tough, and all of what I've said this morning is for both genders, but I really want to speak most specifically right now to our men. And that is the third thing, respect. Respect. To respect your bride for a multitude of reasons. First and foremost, look, like I see a lot of this stuff. She's not your slave. She's not your cook or your laundry machine. She may do some of those things for you, but that's not why you marry this woman, right? And now you got dead quiet. Everyone's like, ooh, just got real. It did. It did get real because many of you right now think like that. You think like that. If this woman is so useless that all she is a servant to you, why did you marry her? What does that say about you, right? What does that say about your decision-making skills? You asked her. You decided to do it. So obviously, I know you good men out there, you don't think like that, at least not originally. You know that there is respect and there is fire and love for this woman. Why does that change? I think it happens we become comfortable. But the reality of it is, in this other human being, this woman who is your partner, your complete equal, your companion, not someone who is there to serve you, you initially fell deeply in love with her and respected her. Keep that, maintain that respect. Like I say, it doesn't mean that, like in my house, I'm not a chauvinist, but I don't cook. We talked about that last week. I'm a terrible cook. She does it, right? It's just something that's how it works in our house. But my respect for her is astronomical, off the charts. Because I didn't just marry a chef. I married my bride, right? And so respect your ladies, gentlemen. Remember, you came from one another. And you come together for one another. It's not just about, this is another piece in my puzzle. It is about another human being whom God has put before you to live a crucifixional life with, right? Let me end it with this. I know not everyone in the church right now has been married in the Orthodox faith, but many of us have. And the high point of the marriage is what? The crowning, right? For those who don't know, we put literally crowns upon the heads of the bride and groom. And they're not to say king and queen. That's not it at all. It is the high point of the marriage sacrament for the Orthodox to tell us, hey dude, hey gal, you're getting married in a Christ-like way. What's a Christ-like way? The cross, crucifixionally. Those are the crowns of martyrdom. That's what that means. That's why they're put there. So God is telling you, look, I want you to live a crucifixional marriage. I want you to do it the way I tell you to do it. How do you do it? Crowns. What does that mean? Die for the other. And so that I live every single day of my life as though there is no more Father Chris, but there is only Allison, and vice versa. Now, when we learn to communicate with our spouses, when we continue to date from this day until our last breath, and we respect our brides as the queen of our kingdom, the prized jewel of all of our possessions. When we live like this, I say this almost at every marriage, you won't have a good marriage. You won't. You'll have a great marriage. It won't be mediocre. It will be blessed. It will be a light to the world so that other people can see how the influence of the gospel of Jesus Christ can change a life for the positive. Remember, that's where we started, to show a light to the world. And all of what I've said this morning ends right here. This is the opportunity that you have. This is what you have in you to be a part of something bigger, something better, something godlike. And that is to show the world that is full of broken marriages, almost 50% end in divorce in the United States today. A world that has people shying away from marriage. I don't want to get into that stuff because, it doesn't ever work out right. A world that is full of prenuptial agreements, so just in case, we want to hedge our bets. A world that has a broken idea of the sacrament of marriage, that it no longer has to be within the same or within the opposite two genders. For God's sakes, they don't even believe there's a million genders now, right? You could see in that broken world, there's not a lot of light. It's chaos. And Christ is saying to you today, you have the opportunity to be that light. And so I want to implore and beg all of you, challenge all of you. This is the opportunity that you have today to be that light to the world. And to do so in all facets and in many facets, but most importantly, within your marriages. So remember to communicate through rapport and report. Remember to continually date from your first date until your last breath. And remember to show the greatest love and the greatest respect for your spouse, because that is a person whom God has brought into your life, and that is a person whom you have chosen to spend the balance of your life with. I know you guys can do this. I know sometimes it's challenging, but that's why the life is crucifixion. So until next week, my prayer for all of you, beloved, is that you are a light unto the world, that you show the glory of God to the world, so that others might glorify God in return. Until next week, go out there. Let's get some. God bless and keep all of you. Amen.